Hello world, hello audience. My name is Eli Smart. My pronouns are he, they, and I am one of your hosts for the When Words Collide podcast. And joining me is,
Hello, everyone. I'm Lucas Diano. My pronouns are he, him, and I am your other host for the When Words Collide podcast.
and who do we have here today?
Hi, everybody. I'm Johnathan Whitelaw. I'm an author, journalist, and broadcaster, and one of the special guests at this year's When Words Collide, which is very exciting.
We're very happy to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and just talking to us about what you'll be doing for the conference and just about you as an artist and about yourself.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Glad to be here. Delighted to be here. I'm very much looking forward to it. This is my second conference, second festival. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I am not originally from Alberta or indeed Canada, but it has been home for me and my family actually for the last 2.5 years. So it's yeah, we've been made to feel very, very welcome here, and I was absolutely delighted when the AWCS asked me last year if I'd like to return to When Words Collide in 2024 as one of the special guest people, and very, very excited to be heading back down to Calgary for the weekend.
No, that's fantastic.
We're very excited to have you.
Stop it, you two.
We're experts in flattery.
Yeah. So, anyone who is familiar with your work, Mr. Whitelaw, will know that you have had a very long and very varied career as well, and everything from writing to politics. You know, when it comes to kind of breaking into those areas and trying to get a foot in the door, so to say, it can be very intimidating, I think, to put it simply. And as someone who has been doing this kind of stuff for a while now, would you, have any tips or stories to tell about, kind of finding inspiration in that intimidation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just flattered. I mean, you guys said that you were the kings of flattery. I'm flattered that you're calling me Mr. Whitelaw. That's not only makes me feel very important, but makes me feel very old. So it's okay. It's all right. I'll take that. It's the first time for everything, right? But I think intimidation is a natural part of any particular project that you start, whether it's your career, whether it's starting a family, or whether you start in a new sports team, starting school, anything, right? And I've always been a great believer of embracing that intimidation, embracing that nervousness, and seeing it very much as a natural part of the process. It's part of the gig. In terms of writing, in fiction writing and things like that, I'm a mystery writer first and foremost, and I think, I still get it, right? When I sit down to write a new book and it's that blank Word document, I still get jitters. I still get that panicky sense of, oh my God, can I still do this? Was I ever able to do this? And I've got 90,000 words that I've got to get, or 95,000 words that I've got to pluck out from somewhere, because there'll be looming deadlines and contracts that if they don't get fulfilled, they'll send the lawyers round, which is what you don't want. But I think with writing, I think with creative writing, with any sort of fiction in particular, I think I get asked quite a lot, obviously by writers and aspiring writers and writers that are at the very beginning of their journey about how do you do it, how do you go about becoming a professional writer, full-time writer, and I've always said that you've got to treat it professionally. Right? You've got to be professional about your writing. If you want to be a writer, you want to be a full-time writer, you want to have your writing published, you want it on the shelves in libraries and bookstores and things like that, you've got to be professional about it. And the great thing is, you don't have to be a professional writer to be professional about your writing, which means essentially finish projects. It sounds simple, right? But I always say this in my courses. I do a lot of courses for AWCS, and I always say at the beginning of my courses, no debut author has ever had 3/4 of a project published. It's got to be finished. You've got to do it. Set yourself deadlines, meet these deadlines, but also be professional in how you approach writing. And that means educating yourself in how the industry works. I read somewhere not that long ago, I think it was 2018 or 2019, the publishing industry in Canada was worth $3 trillion, which is, I beg your pardon, sorry, $3 billion, which is incredible, right? And that's just Canada. If you then upscale that to across the globe, you're talking about an industry that's worth a lot of money, and the people that are involved in it are professionals. That's what they do for a living, and if you want to do that, then being as professional as you can be at the very beginning, or as close to the beginning as you can do, you'll find actually that it makes a big difference, especially when it comes to finishing projects and getting agents and getting publishers and stuff like that. It's exciting. It's really good to be part of. And like I said, I try to embrace that intimidation, because it can be intimidating, but just always remembering that, particularly with writing or any kind of profession, being professional, it's almost like a shield, right? You can use it as armor. Stick to your professionalism, and really, you can't go wrong.
No, 100%, especially in an industry that's, at least here in Alberta, is so tight knit.
Absolutely.
Professionalism and respect is such a big part of it because, well, when you basically know everybody and everybody knows you,
Absolutely.
everyone wants to help each other out.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing. That's something that I've always had. I mean, my debut novel came out in 2015, so I'm just short of a decade, or probably around about a decade now, actually, given that signed contracts and books don't come out immediately and things. So I'm 10 years into the publishing industry, and one of the things that I've been so grateful about is the writing community, not just in crime and mystery fiction, but all fiction, really. And that stretches from writers to bloggers to reviewers to editors, agents, publishers, publishing directors, you name it. There is a very, very strong community there. And again, it's always something that I try to encourage when I do classes and workshops and speak with aspiring writers, is engage with that community, right? And exactly as you say, here in Alberta, it's not vast. It's not a huge community. It's big, but it's not mega. For someone who only arrived in the Alberta, kind of fiction and art scene 2.5 years ago, I've very much been taken to heart by it. No more greater than when words collide, and the community that takes part in that every year, to the point where obviously I'm back this year. Use that to the kind of image, the classic image of a writer sitting on their own, scribbling away with a quill and a parchment by candlelight on their own, writing being a lonely business. It's true to a certain degree, but I've found that some of the most interesting and helpful and kind people that I've ever come across, actually, in my whole life, are part of the writing community. And someone's always there to offer support or offer some advice or point you in the right direction, or almost just give you a pat on the back and say, you can do this. It's really special. It's really, really special to be a part of. And When Words Collide as an event is just a celebration of that, right? It's an opportunity for people to come from all over the province, all over Canada, all over the world, in fact, and all be in the same room and talk about books and writing, and an opportunity to spend time with each other. That this community exists electronically and across different platforms, and it's really cool.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And kind of on that same note, you had talked about talking to other writers and people trying to get into that industry. And in fact, at When Words Collide, you have a couple of different panels happening where you're going to talk to people who are in the process of writing or trying to get ideas.
Yeah.
And kind of on that note, what would you say to people trying to get better at taking feedback? Because I know, no matter what we say to ourselves, no matter how much we psych ourselves up, feedback always has a deep impact, whether it be positive or negative.
Absolutely.
And so over the years, I'm sure you've given lots of feedback and heard lots of feedback. And what would you say to people trying to get better at taking it?
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. I was a journalist, as you guys have mentioned, for 12 years. For one of the biggest tabloids in the UK and Europe, in fact, but one of the biggest tabloids certainly in the UK. And I cannot thank journalism enough for training me essentially in the art of editing, both editing my own work, but also being able to take editing notes and learn from it. And it's something, actually, with the writing community in particular. It's the arts in general, of course, but the writing community in general, or in particular, I beg your pardon. Writers come from such varied and diverse backgrounds, and really there's no other industry like it, right? I've got writer friends who are former cops, who are former judges, former lawyers, former teachers, former engineers, former scientists. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. When I was a journalist, all the people that I worked with had all studied media studies or journalism or English. It was a very, very very, very narrowed pool of certainly from a college perspective, from an education perspective. My wife's a doctor, for example. All her colleagues went to medical school, or at least you hope they went to medical school. Right? It's one of those things. It's a vocation like that, right? My brother's a solicitor, so all his colleagues have gone to law school and things. So obviously, you get very, very different people going into these sectors, but they all come from a sort of standard level where they all work and operate. Whereas as writers, we come from such varied and diverse backgrounds with such amazing stories and backgrounds to tell those stories. You find that some people handle editing and the editing process of writing a lot better, or they find it more or less of a shock depending on where they've come from. Like I said, I remember I could tell you guys horror stories about being a cub reporter and being screamed at, and I kid you not, screamed at by editors for making, very, very silly mistakes in my copy that I shouldn't have made in the first place, right? But the way that they taught me to get better was to have a screaming match at me and make me feel like I was, 6 inches small. And then I also had editors who were very, very caring, very, very kind, would take the time, take me aside and say, Johnathan, come on, you're better than this, you can do better than this. Don't make the same mistakes over and over again. So when it translated my career as an author, I think that was just, inbuilt in me that I knew that editing was part of the job. And the thing about editing is, and it's something that I'll be saying at the conference to some of the wonderful writers who very, very kindly have sent their work in for me to take a look at. And they're brilliant, by the way. I've been catching up on them this weekend. One thing that I would always say, and not just to them, obviously, but to anyone entering into writing as a career, as a thing, is the editing process is there to make it better. Right? It's not there to make you feel like you're a bad writer. It's certainly not there to make you feel like you can't write. That's not what it's there for. That's not the purpose. The purpose is there to make what you've already done better. When you move into the professional ranks, when you get to the stage where you are working with publishers and editors and professional editors and things like that, they will send stuff back and they'll go, what did you mean here? Or do we think this might work? Or this doesn't really work. And the important thing for me, the advice that I would pass on in that respect is that learn from it, learn from your mistakes, but learn from your victories as well, and never ever perceive it as you not being able to do this gig, because when you get to the editing process, you've already done 80,000 words, 90,000 words if you're writing a novel, for example. You can do it. Of course you can do it. The editing process is all about making it better and making it the absolute best story in fiction, for example. It can be, and that's what we want, right? We want the work to be the absolute best it can be. And also, it doesn't go away, right? The nervousness doesn't go away. It never goes away. So it's all about embracing that. Like, I'm where I'm at the moment. I've written 2 full-length novels this calendar year, and they're both with my editor at the moment. Well, they're separate editors, but they're both with the editors at the moment. I'm waiting on the editorial feedback coming back to me. And, I'm still chewing on my fingernails. I'm still a little bit nervous, and I've been doing this nearly a decade, and it doesn't go away, but it's good, because when it does come back, and if you've got great editors like I do, you know that they are there to work through the sticky patches, to make the good bits better, to make the bad bits good, and so on and so forth. So it's something to absolutely be embraced, and it should never, ever, ever be taken as a reflection on your ability. Again, I say this in my classes for AWCS, I want writers to go back and look at their work and edit their own work. And I want you to pick out parts that go, do you know what, that doesn't make sense, or what was I thinking when I wrote that part? The fact that you've looked at it, gone back and spotted these things, that's editing. That's part of the editing process, and that's a good thing. So yeah, it's feedback. It's always, or it always should be, designed to make the ultimate product better. And it's something to embrace. And again, it's, as we talked about earlier, you're embracing that nervousness, you're embracing that intimidation, and hopefully it makes you better as a writer. The trick is to not keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I know I'm dreadful for that. Like when I get in full flow, the amount of times that I type TEH instead of THE, real basic stuff, right? But it happens, and I've got a very kind editor who we've got like a bit of almost like a swear jar going at the moment, where every time that she spots one of those, we put, whatever it is. I think she's in the UK, so it's like 50p or something. It's like a quarter goes in the jar. So at the end of a process, like I could buy a new house pretty much with the with the mistakes that I've made. So, but it happens, right? It happens.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, thank you very much for a very insightful answer.
Pleasure.
When it comes to, of course, switching topics a little bit, when it comes to your craft specifically, just out of curiosity for myself, everyone else here, and for the audience as well, what to you makes the cozy crime genre so appealing and unique, and what really draws you to it?
That's a great question. How long have we got? No, I'll keep it short. It's interesting, actually. I did an event for the Crime Writers of Canada earlier on this year, and this lovely lady from Halifax in Nova Scotia, she said, Johnathan, if I had to pick a cozy writer out of a lineup, you are literally the last person that I would pick to be a writer of cozy crime, both in my general appearance and also my background and what I used to do, as a journalist and working in politics and things like that. And I was flattered by it because I thought, well, that's, I'm doing something right. The great thing about cozy mysteries is that there's this wonderful sort of duality to them. They are rooted. I always think this about cozy crime. They are rooted ultimately in real life, the sort of humdrum of real life. Any cozy detective can be literally anyone. Your cozy detectives are me, they're you, they're your neighbor, they're your great aunt, they're your butcher. These types of people. That's the great thing about it. But of course, ultimately, it's about solving a murder usually, and there's a dead body there. And I don't know about you guys, but literally the last thing that I'd want to do if I opened my front door and there was a corpse lying there is go and try and catch the murderer who put it there, right? That's what the police are for. So it's this wonderful sense of it's completely rooted in real life, but it's also complete fantasy and total escapism, which is bonkers. I think for me though, I mean, with my Bingo Hall Detectives novels, like the first one was written towards the tail end of the pandemic in 2021, and I was still a journalist. I was still a full-time journalist at the time, and I was reporting on this stuff, and I was in the UK at the time, so you were getting daily briefings about people that were contracting the COVID, and people that unfortunately were dying from COVID, and it just felt like every single day there was some other awful thing that was happening all over the world, not just where I was, but of course it was. We were all affected by it, and I think the idea for the series came about, and when I wrote it, obviously when I was when it was bought up by HarperCollins, I sat down to write it, and to be honest, it felt pretty much like an escapism just for me. As a writer, it was an escapism for me to do an 8-hour shift, 10-hour shift, go home or stay at home rather, and just switch off from all of that and have this total fantasy, this total escapism that cozy crime offers that perhaps you maybe don't quite get with things like police procedurals or hard-boiled mysteries that are very much rooted in what actually happens throughout police investigations and things like that. So that's continued. I mean, that's the thing. Like I'm 3 books in now. I've written the fourth one's with my editor, as I mentioned, but I still get that kick. I still get that sort of escapism when I sit down to write these characters and these settings. It feels like I'm sort of checking out from reality for a little while, and then and having lots of fun. And again, that's a great thing about cozy mysteries, are that they are, or they should be fun. They should have lots of humor to them, and it's just good fun to do, and hopefully readers find them fun as well.
No, 100%. And thank you so much. And that'll be a genre that we'll have to explore a little more.
We've done a lot of talking about your career and what you've written. And just for the sake of our audience, as well as us, because I'm incredibly intrigued, do you know where people could go to find your work, or where they could go to read your work?
So, I mean, all my books are widely available in Indigo and Coles and Chapters. In Calgary, Owl's Nest is one of the great independent bookstores in Calgary. They've been a great supporter of my work, actually. I believe they're the bookstore for the festival. But yeah, I've been really humbled actually by how how my books have been adopted over here in Canada, because obviously they're set in the UK and I'm originally from there. But yeah, I mean, I've been all over the country since we've been here. I've been all coast to coast here in Canada, and obviously when I go into Indigos and stuff like that and indies, and to see it on the shelf, I still get a kick out of that, right? And it's always pretty cool and slightly intimidating as well when you go up to the staff and say, would you like me to sign copies? No one's ever said no, but I still get really nervous that will happen one day. And of course, the lovely booksellers who are the heart and soul of this industry are always so polite, and they're always so welcoming and so fun to have a chat with, but I always still get really nervous, sort of sweaty palms, a little bit shifty. God knows what I look like when I go up to the desk and say, hi, I'm Johnathan Whitelaw, would you like me to sign the stock that you've got? So yeah, I'm obviously Amazon and kind of the online retailers, they've got them as well. So yeah, again, very lucky that I'm an international author, which still sounds really odd for me to say, but it's true, and I'm very lucky, very blessed to be in this position, and can't wait for When Words Collide, because like I said, it's a chance to chat books all weekend. It's great. Can't wait.
Yeah, and neither can we. And on that note, when it comes to When Words Collide, you are going to be featured at a bunch of different panels.
Yeah.
So to all of our viewers listening out there, if you want the chance to hear the wonderful Johnathan Whitelaw
stop it.
talk on the panels, if you want to hear Johnathan Whitelaw, there is Navigating the Publishing Journey from Manuscript to Bookshelves with Johnathan Whitelaw at 2 p.m. on Friday, August 16th. There will be an autograph session with Johnathan in attendance at 4 p.m. on the 16th. There's going to be a game of Quiplash from Jackbox Games 9 p.m. on Friday. There's going to be a blue pencil session with Johnathan Whitelaw at 10 a.m. on Saturday, August 17th. There's going to be an Ask Us Anything event at 1 p.m. on Saturday, August 17th. And there's going to be a live action slush, a mystery crime event where you'll get to read your mystery crime script aloud. It's Johnathan Whitelaw and others at 4 p.m. on Saturday, August 17th. And we touched on it before, the genre of cozy mysteries. There's going to be a panel called Writing Cozy Mysteries with Johnathan Whitelaw at 11 a.m. on Sunday, August 18th, the last day of the event. So look out for all of those. It's going to be a really fun time. I, for one, am very excited.
Oh yeah, it'll be fantastic to be able to see Johnathan in action and get to learn a lot more from you during the event. So
Pleasure.
thank you so much for coming out, Johnathan. We really
Not at all.
appreciate it.
Not
It
at all.
was
Thank
lovely
you.
talking.
Thank you guys. It's great to chat. And just reading off all these events, I think I'm going to be exhausted by the time that Sunday night rolls around. But it'll be good. It'll be good exhaustion.
100%. That's the best kind. Thank you again. And I hope you and everyone else listening has a wonderful rest of their day.
Yes, thank you for listening.
Thank you.